All right, well, welcome to another episode of the That's My Dad podcast. Got a great story for you today. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. Walter Smith, welcome to the studio, Walter. So Walter and I were high school buddies, and we could probably tell lots of neat stories. We may do that, but Walter, some of our old buddies are going to be watching, so I'm going to go ahead and give them a heads up. They're going to learn some new stuff about you because there's things that I didn't know about you, and you're growing up. I mean, you have a really incredible story as it relates to fatherhood. So we're going to get to that, but I want to give a little tease to the women that are watching and listening. We're going to tell a love story today too. So we got a story that Hallmark would be ashamed that they didn't get the story first. So we're going to tell that here in a little bit. So thanks for being here, Walter. Let's jump into where you are right now. You're just tell us what your situation in life is right now, so people know.
Currently, at this present time, I'm serving in the capacity of the senior pastor of United Christian Church in Gaston, Alabama, over Sampson Avenue, and I thank and praise God for having an opportunity to come back to a community where I am considered to be a former football player at Emmett Sampson High School in Alabama City, and it's just good to be back home. Yeah,
it's good to be back. So you're a husband of nearly 30 years, and a father and a grandfather, and a business owner. So right. You've always owned businesses and been a hardworking guy. So we were high school teammates. I was telling the production crew when they came in, I can't believe that I used to butt heads with you in practice. No, it's no wonder I don't have any sense. So you guys that went to high school with us, hang around because they're probably thinking, man, neither one of those guys have any sense. I don't know how they're going to do a podcast. But
well, the biggest thing I believe that a lot of us had, we had big hearts and tenacity about being a winner.
That's right. We weren't afraid of much. I don't know why. Maybe we should have been, but we weren't. So take me back, Walter, to your childhood, and let's get into that story because it's really a fascinating story.
Well, from beginning in my childhood life, I grew up without my father being there from the days of beginning. I always wondered about him, and my mother always told me about him and who he was, but I never had an opportunity to physically put my eyes on him or reach out and touch him until I was 18 years old in life. And I think it's incredible as growing up as a young kid, during the process when I had grown a little hair on my head and I needed to go to the barbershop.
Yeah, I think we both had an afro, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay. We won't go into that.
Scott's was curly.
I had a better afro than you did. I probably needed to go down to the barbershop with you, but anyway, we won't go there. So you were going to the barbershop, and what happened?
But in the process of me going to the barbershop, there was a barbershop on Tuscaloosa Avenue that was named Tux Barbershop.
Mm-hmm.
And at Tux Barbershop, periodically there would be a man there that I always kind of felt drawn to. In the process of each other being drawn to each other, we would begin to have conversations with one another. But in the process of having conversations with one another, I didn't know that the man that I was talking to, his name is Preston Nix. I didn't know that Preston Nix was my father's brother and everything. But as time transpired, it was later on revealed and made known that my father, Lovelace Nix, and Preston Nix were brothers.
So you met your uncle and were drawn to him and didn't even know he was your uncle?
No, didn't even know he was my uncle.
So you went through all your elementary school days, all your middle school days, and high school days, knowing that you had you obviously knew you had a biological father, but you'd never seen him, never laid eyes on him.
Never laid eyes on him.
So tell us what's that like? What does it feel like to grow up wondering about that?
Some of your other friends, as you grow up in life, you see them with their fathers, but at the same time, your father is not there, and you know that there's something missing there, but in the process of you seeing that missing, you have the longing in your heart to want to know your father. But in the process of wanting to know him and everything, it's a longing because you know that it's a possibility you could have other brothers and sisters that you don't know about. But in my life, that was true. I did have other brothers and sisters, and then just didn't know who they were or where they was at.
Yeah. So you were talking earlier before we went live, your birth certificate. Tell us about your birth certificate and how that affected you.
Yes, because during the process of playing Pee Wee football, one of the things that you would always have to do if you wanted to play on a Pee Wee football team, because they always looked at your age, when you was born and everything. That was the order that they had established. But when I always would look at my birth certificate, I always saw my mother's name being on my birth certificate, but I never saw my father's name on my birth certificate, even though my mother told me who my father was, but his name wasn't on the birth certificate.
Wow, what does that do to a kid emotionally, mentally? You maybe didn't think about it at the time, or maybe you did. What do you think it did to you?
Well, at that time, I really didn't think a whole lot about it, because at that time period, you're young, and in my life, my immediate family grew up on one side of the road on Tuscaloosa Court. So therefore, my grandfather and my uncles, they was there, and so with them being there, that kind of somewhat subsided it and fulfilled that gap. And I really didn't give it a whole lot of thought during that time. But as I grew older in life, it became to be a more of a realization of saying that, hey, you do need your dad.
Even though you had these other guys kind of involved with you, and you had our coaches who cared about you, you still had that longing for to know who your dad was and have him there.
Right.
Oh, and in the back of your mind, if you're a young man who's grown up without a father, you feel inadequate. Am I correct about that?
Yes, you're correct, because I can remember during the process of time when I first met my dad. When I met him, I was 18 years old. And I was in the process to go to college to the University of North Alabama in Florence, Alabama. And when I met him, it was like, okay, good to meet you.
So I remember we talked one time several months ago. We had dinner together, and you said that you met your dad and your uncle, and your first thought was, he's been down the street this whole time.
Yeah. So after I realized where my father's parents lived at, my great aunt, her name was Miss Maybelle Smith. She lived in Ocala, and they lived in my dad's parents, and my dad lived across the road from my great aunt. And it was overwhelming to me for us to go to Ocala and spend time in Ocala, and my grandparents and my dad living across the road from them, and nobody never say anything.
Oh,
that was crushing. That was hard. That was heartbreaking. And now in return, I'm questioning and I'm wondering now. Okay, Mom, why you never say anything? My uncles, why you never say anything? I'm going to my aunt, why you never say anything?
So you're out as a little kid running around playing, and your dad and your grandparents are watching you, and they don't even acknowledge that you're theirs.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty painful, I take.
Yes.
Wow. See, we had a kid at the ranch, and I think you may have known him, but he met his dad. It's not funny, but it's kind of comical. He met his dad for the first time in prison when he was 30 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, he said, somebody said, hey, you want to meet your daddy? And he said, I didn't even know I had a daddy. And they introduced him. They were both they were in the same prison. and met there.
Wow.
But your aunt called you at some point, and she knew that this was bothering you. You had an injury as a junior in college that ended your football career.
Right.
Kind of put you in a tough place emotionally. I think your aunt called you and said, Walter, you got some resentment about your dad. Tell us that story and how you and your dad finally kind of reconnected.
Well, in the process of me having that conversation with my aunt, I did have a lot of resentment, and she told me, she said, son, she says, I see that on you, and she says, but you gotta forgive, you gotta release it, you gotta let that go, because you didn't have no choosing in the choices that your father and your mother made. And in the process of it, she told me, she said, it's doing more hurt, it's doing more harm, it's doing more damage to you than it is doing to them, because I was just a person that was reaping something that I really didn't know anything about and everything. But I'm so thankful that she saw it, because it helped me to release it and to go on further in life at this present time where I am today. Mm-hmm. And I'm very thankful that even in the process of being home at that time period, because I did injure my shoulder when I was playing football at North Alabama, it began to cause me to even to yearn even the more to wanting to have a relationship the more with my father. And then in the process of him being in an accident, I began to have an opportunity to be around him a little bit more than I did in the previous life, until I was a little bit over 20-something years old.
Yes. Tell us about that accident that your dad was in.
My dad was in a car. He was in a car accident. He was walking across the road in a Tala, and a car hit him. Yeah. And he wound up being in the nursing home for a period of time to recover from the accident he had been in and everything. And during the process of him being in that car wreck and everything, it created an opportunity for me to get to know him a little bit better than I had known him in previous years.
Your dad eventually passed away. I don't think, did he ever get out of the nursing home?
No, he never did. He never did get out of the nursing home and everything. And at that time period when he got hit by the car and everything. But during the process before my father passed away and everything, Maurice Wright and I was in Decatur, Alabama, and I got a telephone call letting me know that my father had passed away and everything. And before I received that call, one of the greatest things that I give God praise and glory and honor for to this day is that during the process of my father being in the nursing home from being in that car wreck and everything before he deceased, I'm so thankful for this, that my grandfather, who was my dad's father, and my uncle Preston Nix, we was all three there together. The Lord gave us an opportunity to lead him into the sinner's prayer.
Wow.
And that's special to me. That's the greatest gift any man can receive, is the gift of repentance. And that was awesome. That was special to me, even though my father never gave me naturally any presents or any gifts, but for our Heavenly Father to come down and give my dad a gift. And I had an opportunity to be there to see him receive that gift of eternal life with Jesus Christ. That was the greatest gift that could be given to me.
See, I see the light in your eyes when you talk about that, Walter, because it was a long struggle.
Yes,
but it had a good ending in a lot of ways.
Yes,
you can't ask for more than that. We said we were going to tell a love story. and there's somebody else in your life. Let's dive into that for just a minute.
Well, many years ago on Tuscaloosa Avenue, there was a laundromat right next door to a service station. And during that time period in our life, we didn't have a washer and dryer at home, and there was many homes in that community that didn't have the luxury of having a washer and dryer at home. And on Saturdays, me and my brothers and my mother, we would load up clothes and go to the laundromat and wash clothes on Saturdays. But on this one particular Saturday, I gazed at this young lady and didn't know who she was and didn't know anything about her.
Wait a minute, you're 8 years old.
8 years old.
Let's don't forget that
part. Yes, I am 8 years old at the time, and it's for some random reason, I had this thought and said to my mother, I said, "Mama, that young lady right there could be my wife one day." And my mother, she said, "Son, be quiet. You don't know what you're talking about. Get in that car."
I can see that happen. I just visualize.
Yeah.
Get in that car, Walter.
Yeah.
So she didn't know. She didn't know what was. Tell the rest of the story.
But as life went on, I come to find out that she didn't live too far away from me. A couple of streets over. My wife grew up on Avenue E, and that was probably about 4 or 5 blocks over from where I lived at and everything. But as time went on, we got into high school. I was a 9th grader, and she was an 8th grader at General Forest. Me and her crossed paths again. And we began to start dating one another, and our dating went from high school to college and into marriage, and praise be to the Lord. The Lord allowed us to see August the 5th, 2022. We'll be married 32 years.
32 years. All started when you were 8 years old at the laundromat.
At the laundromat, yes.
But you got more than just you got a great wife. By the way, if high school buddies are watching, that's Cynthia Etheridge.
Right.
And there are lots of Etheridge. There's 9 of them, right?
10 of them in all.
10 of them in all. So you got more than just Cynthia.
Right.
Let's talk about what you got came in that package.
Well, what came in that package is it was a family of 10. There was 3 girls and there was seven boys and everything. And my wife's father, I thank and praise God for him. I think he was a great example on the earth of what a father should be to their children and being a husband unto his wife. You know, in the process of me beginning to get to know his daughter, one day I was over there sitting in the living room, and someone was sitting around the table to eat, and he invited me to the table. He said, "Son, come on to the table." He says, "You don't have to sit back there and wait till she finishes eating." He says, "I'm a family man. He's plenty in this house for everybody to eat." So he said, "Come on to the table and eat with us."
He was also he's brave because you could put away a lot of food. So he invited you to the table, and you accepted that invitation, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, I accepted that invitation and found out that my wife's mother was a good cook.
Check. That's on your list. You got to have a good cook.
Yeah, and periodically I found myself sitting at that table pretty regularly.
And Mr. Etheridge kind of became a father that you didn't have at that time.
Yes, he was. Mr. Etheridge was a great father figure. And even though after he retired from 2 jobs, he went right back to work a few days later. This man would hit the floor at 5 o'clock in the morning, lived to be almost 94 years old. And he was a man of great wisdom, I believe, when it came to being a father, because one in the process of me having the desire to want to get married to his daughter, he said this to me. He said, "Son," he says, "I believe in being a family." He says, "You don't get in this to get out of it." He said, "You get in this to stay in it." And he said to me, he says, in the process of you having the desire to marry my daughter, he says, one thing I want to find out from you is, do you have a job? And I want to know where that job is at. And he says, I'm coming to see you.
He just didn't want to know that you had one. He's going to come and check you out.
Yes. And I believe we need to do that today.
Yeah. So did he show up at work?
Yes, he showed up at work. And some fathers need to show up at work today.
Yeah. He verified. And tell us what he told you about your house. You know.
My father-in-law, Mr. Etchers, one of the things he would do on the weekend, he would go around and visit his children, and he came by our house one weekend and asked me about the grass being cut, and I said, well, Mr. Etchers, at this present time, I don't own a lawnmower, and I said, I pay somebody to cut my grass, and he says, okay. He says, I'll see y'all next week. So the following weekend come around, and he says, Walter, he said, I need you to come outside. So I go outside. And he said, son, he said, from this day forward, you have no excuse about keeping the grass cut. He says, I went and bought you a lawnmower.
Wow.
And in the process of him going and buying me a lawnmower and being married for 32 years, that's only one time during the time of my marriage that someone cut our yard.
And that was the last time the grass got high, too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the last time the grass got high.
Yeah, you didn't want father-in-law coming by and the grass being high.
No, because that's one of the things he did, and he did it at an excellent rate and an excellent job of maintaining the lawn around his house and everything.
And that's one of the things I wanted to roll into from that story is you, and I tell this for the benefit of the young guys out there who are wondering, how, I don't have a dad. What do I do? But you sought people out. Right. First it was your uncle, who you didn't know your uncle. And then it was coaches at University of North Alabama, some Christian coaches you sought out. And then it was your father-in-law that you sought out. And you were always looking for a role model, an example, or somebody to fill that gap that your dad had left. Am I right about that?
Right.
And then when you built a couple of houses, I think, or maybe anyway, I remember the story of you building a house. And like you said, you didn't have a dad to teach you where how to build a house. And you began to ask God to help you. Tell us what happened there.
In the process of me, when I went into my first home, there was many needs and changes that needed to be made in that house. And I'm in the house trying to work. And I'm like, okay, Lord, if my dad would have been in my life the way a father should have been in my life, I could have learned something. And I'm like, okay, Lord, but he's not here. And I'm in the house by myself, weeping and crying, and I fall down on my knees, and then I'm on my face, and I'm crying out to God and saying, Lord, help me. And he says, get up, son. He says, I'm going to be a father to you. And he says, I'm going to put the people in your life that you need to help you to remodel this house. And when I got up off that floor, stopped crying, the very next day, he brought somebody in my life that could help me make the changes that I needed to have made.
The message in that I really want to drive home to young guys, Walter, is that if you put your faith in God and you seek out people to fill that gap, He'll send people into your life.
Right. Without those things happening in the process in the way that they did, I wouldn't be here today.
Now, where do you think you might be?
Oh man, probably dead. Great possibility.
Literally.
Yes.
Literally.
Could have went to self-destruction and everything. At my dad's funeral, I met my sister, which is older than me, on my father's side, and then I have two younger brothers. But at that funeral, me and my brothers and sister, we made a commitment to one another. And the commitment that we made to one another was that even though our parents' decisions were their decisions. We couldn't step into their life and change their decisions, but we could change our decisions by marriage, and not just having a child and not being married. And I'm thankful that my sister, she was married and had children, and my other two brothers have been married and have children.
Wow.
And to this day, we communicate with each other on a regular basis.
So that family unit has been restored.
Yes.
Yeah, so I have so many young guys that I worked with. And just last weekend was with a family, and they're trying to bring their family back together, and there's some issues that they can't get everybody together. But you're telling me it can't happen.
Oh, yes, it can happen. I didn't want to give my daughter something that wasn't given to me. I wanted to give my daughter something that Jesus Christ gave to me, and that was being a father to her, and not allow her to experience the same agony and the same hurt and the same pain that I experienced.
You know, when you made that choice that you were going to stay with your wife, that you were going to be the father, provide the home, you're sowing seeds. And those seeds, after a period of time, come to fruition, and there's results of those seeds. So we collected got a little gift for you here. It's a little product of the decision you made, and we want to show you this video.
Hello, my name is Morgan Childs, and I am the daughter of Walter Smith. And I wanted to come on here to tell my daddy that I love you, Daddy. I love you so much, and I appreciate everything that you have done for my mom and for my family. And also, I wanted to tell the people what kind of man that you are. So my dad is a man of faith, a man of honor, and a man of integrity. He's also a wonderful leader, not just at home, but he's also a great leader in his community. And he'll do anything for anyone. He's very loving and very caring, and he's a very protective guy. And Daddy, I'm so honored to be your daughter, and I just always want you to remember that. And I just again want to tell you that I love you and I appreciate you, and there's no dad around this world like you, Dad. Love you. Bye.
Hello, my name is Cynthia Smith, and I am the wife of Walter Smith. I consider him as a good example of a father figure. He is very protective, a provider, dependable, and he shows compassion. He has been very involved when it comes to the parenthood of our child, and I just want to say that I appreciate him for all that he has done for us as a family, and as well as being a father to his child. And the recent excitement that has taken place in his life is now he is also a grandfather, as what we called him, Papa. And we love you and we appreciate you.
That's awesome.
That's what happens when you make that decision that you're going to change. Your kids aren't going to go through what you went through.
Right.
And this is the result of that decision you made. So, Walter, you're a great friend. I respect you. I want you to know that. I always have.
Feelings mutual.
I'll cherish your friendship forever. And I think you've inspired somebody today. So thank you for taking your time and to share your life, to come and inspire some young man. My prayer is that this is gonna get into the hands of a young guy that's in the same situation you were in, and he's gonna say, I can do it. I can do it. Well, congratulations, Walter.
Well, thank you, sir.
You deserve it, man.
I'm glad to be here.
I appreciate you. We'll wrap it up. That's this episode of That's My Dad, where we're trying to break cycles of generational fatherlessness by inspiring young fathers to become great dads. So Walter Smith, thanks for being here. We'll see you guys next week.